Kia ora tātou, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Thank you for inviting me to speak at the opening of your 2010 annual conference. It's a great pleasure to be back with you again. I'd like to start by acknowledging your National Executive Committee and your National President, Robin Klitscher. Robin has done an outstanding job in his role as President since 2007. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all Royal New Zealand Returned and Serviced Association members for the good work you do in our communities and on behalf of our veterans. The RSA is a well-respected and trusted institution in New Zealand. You play a vital role advocating for veterans and keeping alive the memory of their sacrifices and their contributions. Thank you for all that you do. As Prime Minister and as Robin mentioned, I had the privilege of meeting many veterans and hearing their remarkable stories. You are an inspiration to us all, and I know I speak on behalf of New Zealanders when I say how much we value the contribution you have made to our peace and our security, our prosperity, and indeed our future. You will always hold a very special place in our nation's history, and the National-led government is committed to honouring the sacrifices you have made. Today I'd like to talk about some of the government's initiatives that will be of interest to you. But first I'd like to reflect on some commemorative events I've been involved in recently. In April I went to Turkey for the 95th anniversary of the Gallipoli landings. This was my first trip to Gallipoli and it was an extremely moving experience. The Gallipoli campaign is a deeply significant part of our history, and that history comes alive when you stand at places like Quinns Post and on the summit of Chunuk Bair. In 1915, our forebears in the armed services landed at Gallipoli, thousands of miles from their homes and their families. More than 2,700 New Zealanders did not return home. Thousands more were wounded. I cannot begin to imagine the suffering, hardships, and horrors they endured. It was humbling to be in Gallipoli this year to mark their courage and their sacrifice. I was proud to be accompanied by 22 veterans of subsequent wars, as well as a group of 21 young New Zealanders. The Ministry of Culture and Heritage is currently planning commemorations for 2015, which will mark the 100th anniversary of the Gallipoli landings. Although it's too soon to provide a definitive list of events, 2015 will be an important commemorative year for New Zealand and for many countries around the world. A major project to mark the First World War centenary will be the development of a memorial precinct around the National War Memorial here in Wellington. This is due to be completed in time for the centenary celebrations. This year, I also had the opportunity to visit Korea for the 60th anniversary of the start of the Korean War. I went to the War Memorial in Yongsan, Seoul, for a wreath-laying ceremony in tribute to New Zealanders who lost their lives in that conflict. Like Gallipoli, it was a very moving experience, and I salute those of you who served in that war. This year, New Zealand also marked Merchant Navy Day for the first time. I hope the annual commemorations on September 3rd will continue to raise awareness of the invaluable contribution made by the Merchant Navy in both world wars. Tomorrow, of course, is the anniversary of the Battle of Passchendaele, in which more than 2,700 New Zealand soldiers were killed, declared missing in action, or wounded. More New Zealanders died in that single day in 1917 than any other day in our history. This was a terrible loss for our country, and we will never forget the incredible sacrifice by these soldiers on the 12th of October, 93 years ago. Commemorations are very important for veterans, their families and their friends, and indeed for fellow Kiwis. They help keep the stories and the spirit of our valued veterans alive. Another way to remember and recognise those who have served is by the awarding of medals. The RSA has proposed a Defence Service Medal for many years, and National has supported this idea. We set up a working group last year to consider the medal and its eligibility criteria under the direction of an independent chair, Neil Walter. The working group reported back late last year, and I'm pleased now today to be able to update you with our progress. I'm delighted to announce today that the government has established the New Zealand Defence Service Medal subject to the Queen's approval. Cabinet has also approved an additional $3.85 million for the manufacture and distribution of the medal. The medal is for those who have served in the military for more than 3 years since World War II and those who did compulsory military training or national military service. This is a fantastic way to give our servicemen and women the recognition they deserve. It is estimated that there are more than 160,000 people eligible for the medal. The initial call for applications will be restricted to those aged 50 and over. Those aged 50 and over, but after 6 to 12 months, we will open it up for all others. In cases where an ex-serviceman or woman is deceased, their family can apply for the medal. We hope that applications will open early next year and that the first batch of medals will be delivered soon after. Today, I'd also like to take this opportunity to update you on the government's defence policy. As you know, the government is conducting a defence review. Our defence white paper is on track to be released soon, and I want to thank the RSA for your contribution to this. The white paper will be a blueprint of the future strategic and defence challenges for New Zealand and the type of defence force we will need to face them. It will make sure that the New Zealand Defence Force has what it needs to protect New Zealanders and New Zealand's interests well beyond 2020. It's important for us to take the time to make the right decisions. We've consulted with a lot of people, including the public and a panel of independent experts. We've also undertaken a comprehensive value for money review because we want to get the most out of our defence budget and put as many resources as possible into the front line, because it's our troops that matter most of all. And they're doing a fantastic job both here and abroad. Just last month, we saw the Defence Force step up and help Canterbury after the devastating earthquake. And at present, New Zealand forces are proudly representing us in Timor-Leste, the Middle East, Sinai, Iraq, the Solomon Islands, Korea, Sudan, and Afghanistan. In May this year, I had the privilege of visiting our troops in Afghanistan. It was good to spend some time with our servicemen and women in Kabul and Bamyan. They're doing a great job, helping to build schools and hospitals, protecting the Afghan people, and restoring security to the region. I enjoyed visiting the bazaar in Bamyan and meeting some of the locals. It was clear to me that the people there are very grateful for the support of our troops. I was also struck by the camaraderie, commitment and courage on display by our servicemen and women. You can be really proud of them and of the work that they are doing on your behalf. They are continuing in the spirit and traditions that you and those before you have left. And I know that they do this wherever they are sent. In August, New Zealand lost a fine young soldier and officer in action in Afghanistan, Lieutenant Timothy O'Donnell. Tim was a man who exemplified the Defence Force's values of courage, commitment, camaraderie, and integrity. His death was a stark reminder that when our servicemen and women leave home to serve overseas, it comes with very real risks. But when I was in Afghanistan, I saw firsthand that our men and women are making a real difference. I'd like to take this opportunity today to pay my respects to all of our troops serving us so proudly in Afghanistan and elsewhere overseas. Now I'd like to touch on a few of the national-led government's initiatives that may also be of interest to you. This government has made good progress in the area of Veterans Affairs, and I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of Minister Judith Collins. The Law Commission's report into the review of the War Pensions Act was tabled in Parliament in June. It contains 170 recommendations on changes to the War Pension Scheme. The government is considering the report at the moment and will make an announcement in due course. This is a large report, and it's important that we work through it carefully and take the time to ensure that we get it right. You will also be aware of our work to increase engagement between the government and veterans. Veterans Affairs New Zealand started case management in the community last year. Under this initiative, case managers travel throughout New Zealand to hold events with groups of veterans. There are 4 a month. It's a chance for veterans to share their views and to get information on what support is available. I'm pleased to report that the initiative has been very successful so far and has had good attendance. It's important that veterans can express their views directly to the government. That is something the RSA has strongly advocated for, and the Case Management Initiative is one way to make sure that that happens. Since last year's annual council, we've also changed travel concessions for severely disabled war veterans. Our changes bring fairness and certainty back into the system. And you will know that Cabinet considered a number of options and decided to make changes which reflected the proposal made by the RSA. We really appreciate your input into Veterans Affairs issues such as this, and we hope that this will continue. I'd like to finish today by sharing my thoughts on New Zealand's future prospects. This government is intent on ensuring that this is a country where your children and grandchildren are able to enjoy the quality of life that you and your forebears were prepared to fight for. To that end, the government is firmly focused on lifting the long-term performance of the New Zealand economy. That's the only way that we can create jobs, boost incomes, raise living standards, and provide the world-class public services New Zealanders deserve. Our October 1 tax changes are an important part of our plan to grow the economy. We've cut all personal income tax rates, GST has been increased to 15%, and we've boosted New Zealand Super, working for families and benefit payments by 2.02% to compensate for the rise in GST. That includes the veterans' pension. The tax package leaves the vast majority of New Zealanders better off. And it's worth noting that since mid-2008, thanks to tax cuts and other adjustments, New Zealand Super and veterans' pension payments have increased significantly. The rate for a married couple has risen from $439.80 for each person a fortnight to $511.06 after 1 October. That's an increase of $142.52 a fortnight per couple, a 16% boost in just over 2 years. We've also relentlessly focused on providing better public services in such areas as health, education and law and order. In health, more patients are getting the elective operations they need than ever before. That includes the likes of hip replacements, cataract removals and ear, nose and throat surgery. In law and order, we're putting victims first through our tough on criminals and addressing the drivers of crime. We've put more police on the street, made sentences tougher and strengthened bail laws. In education, as you may be aware, we've implemented national standards to make sure our young people are getting the reading, writing and maths skills they need to succeed. We're also expanding the successful Limited Services Volunteer Program for 17 to 24-year-olds. This program is a 6-week military-style camp supported by life skills courses. We've had brilliant feedback on the RSV program. Many graduates go on to study, get a job or join the armed forces. These initiatives are just a snapshot of the work we are doing to secure a brighter future for New Zealanders. Ladies and gentlemen, we will never forget the New Zealanders who gave their lives in the service of their country. We will never forget the sacrifice that all veterans have made for a peaceful, secure and prosperous world. And we will never forget those who are proudly serving us today. The government remains committed to honouring your contributions. Thank you to all members of the Royal New Zealand Returned and Services Association for the invaluable job you do, and I want to wish you all the very best for a successful 2010 annual conference. Thank you very much.